We all think of history as this straight line, right? One thing happens, then the next. But what if there's a glitch in the system? What if one of the biggest, most world-changing invasions ever is just a phantom echo of another one, separated by an incredible 800 years? Yeah, just let that sink in for a second. An event that literally reshaped the world, something we all read about, might have happened twice, almost identically, but centuries apart. So today, we're going to dive deep into this absolutely wild historical puzzle. You could call it the case of the duplicate invasion. All right, so first things first, let's introduce the main players in this historical drama. On one side, we have the Huns. On the other, the Mongols. Both legendary, both feared, and, as we're about to find out, maybe, just maybe, they're the same people. Okay, so look at this. Both are described in exactly the same way. Fearsome nomadic warriors sweeping out of the east. The history books tell us the Huns were stopped in 451 AD after making it all the way to modern-day France. Then, crickets for almost 800 years, and suddenly the Mongols show up, pushing all the way to the Adriatic Sea. On paper, it looks like two totally separate events, but trust me, the similarities are only just beginning. And that number right there, 800 years, that's the whole mystery, isn't it? This isn't just a small discrepancy or a rounding error. It is a massive, gaping hole in the timeline. So you have to ask, how on earth can two events be so similar, yet be separated by 8 whole centuries? Is it just the craziest coincidence in all of history? Or is there something seriously off about how we've written it down? Okay, let's move on to the next piece of evidence, the maps. Because when you actually trace the paths of these invasions, the parallels, well, they become impossible to ignore. I mean, look, it's one thing for two different empires to want to invade the same wealthy lands. That makes sense, right? But here's the real kicker. The sources say the Huns and the Mongols didn't just end up in the same places. They started from what is described as a largely congruent origin point, the exact same region. We're not talking about a shared finish line here, but a shared starting line with an 800-year gap in between. And the scale of this whole thing, it's just staggering. This wasn't just, one similar little campaign. We're talking about massive, continent-spanning invasions into the exact same 4 major theaters of conquest: China, India, Persia, and Europe. You lay their paths on top of each other, and it's practically a carbon copy. So the geography is pretty compelling stuff. But what about the written records? Surely the historians of the time kept these two groups completely separate, right? Well, it turns out the archives themselves hold a clue that suggests the line between Hun and Mongol has always been a little blurry. And this really is the key question, isn't it? If these were two totally different events, the historical record should be rock solid, crystal clear. But what if it's not? What if the people writing the history were confused themselves? And this is where it gets really fascinating. Because this whole idea, this confusion, it isn't some new internet theory. We've got a historian, Kortum, writing way back in 1836, who pointed out that even older historians just called the Huns of antiquity Mongols. That's it. To them, they were the same group. So this super strict separation we all learn about today, that might be a much more recent invention. Okay, so we've got the maps, we've got the history books. Now it's time to put it all together and really visualize the heart of this whole anomaly. And here it is. This is the core problem. It's almost like you're watching a movie, right? The movie is the Hunnic invasion, and it ends in 451 at the Catalonian fields. Then someone hits the pause button for 800 years. And then in 1241, they hit play again, and it's the exact same movie. But now the credits say starring the Mongols. And in between, just nothing. 8 centuries of historical silence. So, what's the verdict here? Well, this is really an unsolved case. Let's lay out the evidence file one last time. Okay, let's run through it. We've got almost identical starting points on the map. We have the exact same major targets for their invasions. We have this stark parallel history separated by that massive 800-year gap. And to top it all off, we have historical writers who literally confused one for the other. Any one of these things on its own is a weird coincidence, but when you put them all together, it starts to look like something more. And that brings us right to the final, unavoidable question. Is this all just one of the most mind-blowing coincidences in all of recorded history? Or could it be evidence of a major flaw in our timeline? A kind of phantom time of nearly 800 years that was added into the historical record, creating this perfect echo. Now, the evidence we've looked at today doesn't give us a clear yes or no, but it does force us to look at the patterns and to ask ourselves, what else might be hiding in our timeline?